Hello, people. Welcome back to the Michael Talks Football channel. Can you smell it? It's that time of year. Every 4 years it comes. One of my favorite events, the World Cup draw, is happening. As we know, 29 teams have qualified. We're only missing three. We will sort that out in June. But today, I have a guest, and we're going to discuss about sort of like groups of deaths that could happen, groups of life, and just talk about any sort of groups that we feel are going to be interesting, especially heading into tomorrow's draw. But my guest today, very excited to have him back. You guys have seen him before on the channel. A savant of international football. One of his teams didn't qualify, but the other one did qualify last night. Same for here. So very happy to have him. Football Pharaoh, once again, thank you very much for coming back onto the channel.
Hey, Michael. Hello, everybody else. Thank you again for having me. I'm really looking forward to talking about these groups with potentially what we could get tomorrow. It feels pretty crazy. Qualification's pretty much wrapped up, and we're going to find out right off the bat, earlier than usual, what we're dealing with. And I'm right there with you. The World Cup is one of the greatest sporting events, if not the best sporting event in the history of the world. So that's why we're here. That's why we love talking about it.
Exactly. Every 4 years, this is what we wait for. And, me and you, one of our teams didn't qualify, but the other one did. And that's the beauty of it. At least we have two teams. I mean, some people don't have a country involved, but they will still watch the World Cup because it is the greatest sporting event in the world by far.
Yes.
By far. All right, people. So we're going to soon discuss about the groups, and obviously I got the pots ready so we can look at the pots and, discuss about, maybe favorites we like to see and groups of death and groups of life. But big up to everybody in the chat. CJDH19, nice to see you. Sebastian, French Flia, I can see since Germany. How are you doing? We will not be doing a mock draw. I didn't have enough time to write down all the teams and stuff like that. It's snowing here in England. Well, that means everything's shut down. And I know that's what I know for sure. Yes, we're going to start. Patrick, nice to see you. Theodore, hello. How are you doing? Mo says, yep, Brazil are now number one in the world. Could we discuss how's the going in our little neighborhoods? You guys could do that in the chat. Balkan Warriors, so Belgium is finally not ranked first anymore. Yep. Ankit, big up to you as well. Sin Lurs, I am from Netherlands. Eindhoven, exactly, but I stand for Netherlands and France. Nice to see. Football Pharaoh. Yeah, it is. Finland still ranked 57, boring, but I thought we would drop. Yeah, luckily we didn't drop. All right. So, people, we're going to look at the pots right now. And here are the pots heading into tomorrow's draw. Obviously, the rankings did come earlier today. There was no real big movements. Otherwise, Canada, had they won last night against Panama, they would have been in pot 3. So they're the big ones that miss out in these new FIFA rankings. And because of that, Tunisia are in pot 3. But Football Pharaoh, let me just ask you this. Mm-hmm. Let's start off with pot 4, really. If you're any team from pot 1 or pot 2, which one do you least want to avoid in pot 4?
Well, taking into consideration the possible remaining 3 teams that could make it, if you're a pot 1 team, looking at pot 4, I think there's a very decent number of good teams there. I would be very weary of Peru if they were to make it, as well as Ecuador. They had a relatively strong qualification in South America. They got there slowly in the end, but they still did so nonetheless. And I'm really hyped about this Canada team. I think they're going to, no matter what kind of group they get, I have an inkling they're going to earn a lot of people's respect later this year. So I would say you want to avoid a South American team, because if you get a South American team from pot 4, then you get like a strong African team from pot 3 and then a strong pot 2 team. That could be the group of death right there. How about you?
If I'm any team in pot 1 or pot 2, I would give 3 teams I would avoid. It is definitely going to be Canada number 1, because I think they're really going to do something special in this year's World Cup. Ecuador, I think, are going to be another tough team, but they've proven that they haven't been the greatest road team throughout these qualifiers. So it's interesting to see how Ecuador are going to do. And then definitely Peru, or then the UEFA playoff team. So whoever it may be, Scotland, Ukraine, or Wales. I think any of those 3 teams you want to avoid badly. But if you're any other team, which one would you most want? Would it be Saudi Arabia, Ghana, or, if it is New Zealand, Costa Rica, which one would you most want out of pot 1 or pot 4, excuse me?
In theory, I would say probably New Zealand, or maybe even the UAE if they qualify. Which one I would want, based on what we have here, based on the identity of the 5 teams so far, I would say maybe Ghana. I was going to say Saudi Arabia, but this is a World Cup being held next door. I think Saudi Arabia is going to be very motivated for this. They topped their Asian qualifying group, well managed under Hervé Renard, and they could go one step better than they did in 2018. Ghana is an unknown variety because now all of a sudden they've returned to the World Cup unexpectedly. So for the time being, I think maybe of those five that we see right now, you might want Ghana.
Yeah, I would agree. I would feel like Ghana are just a very you don't know what you're gonna get because they could also call up a lot of guys like Hudson Odoi, Lamptey, Salisu from Southampton. So we could just see a totally different Ghana in this year's World Cup, and they're because they were in a rebuild process, and all
Right.
of a sudden that rebuild process sped up immensely quickly because of now qualifying to the World Cup. So yeah, it's very interesting to see what happens in Pot Four. I think like a sneaky team could be like a Costa Rica or Peru, because those are tricky teams in my opinion as well, especially Costa Rica, because all of a sudden they turned into 2014 Costa Rica and started picking up all these results. So yeah, I think pot four compared to previous years, it is very, very difficult. I think there's 3 or 4 teams you definitely want to avoid if you're in pot one or pot two. What do you think about that?
Oh, can you repeat that again? You kind of cut
I
out
said
there.
I said that in previous years, pot four hasn't been the strongest, but I feel like this year with Canada, Ecuador, the UEFA playoff team, and then Peru possibly, that this pot four teams are much stronger than previous occasions.
I strongly agree, and I think someone can make a case that half the teams in pot four may even be better than half the teams in pot three, with the addition of FIFA's decision to automatically place the playoff teams in pot four. You have teams that arguably are better than where they will ultimately finish. I mean, Ukraine, Wales, Scotland, Peru. For my money, I think they're all of them are better than a pot four ranking. Um, so the team that everyone may want to avoid from the lower two pots could very well come from the last pot, but that's a result of FIFA tinkering with like the seedings.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, it is kind of unfair. Oh, Wales calling Ukraine, but it is what it is. I mean, there's nothing more we can say about it. It's just the whole Ukraine issue going on and COVID and that sort of stuff. I mean, easily the World Cup draw could have been pushed over to July, in my opinion, but FIFA decided to do it already, and that's the way it goes. The easiest group possible. Yeah, we're going to discuss about easy groups and stuff like that. Let's move over to pot three then. Uh, I mean, there's not as strong teams, I would say, but there are a couple sneaky teams. So if you're pot one or pot two team, which teams in pot three do you want to most avoid? Obviously, that you follow all the World Cup qualifiers, but which teams would you want to most avoid?
Teams I would want to most avoid from pot three: Senegal. I think that of course, they're most likely the best team in Africa, recent coming off winning the AFCON. Even if they did look flashy at times, they could always switch on in a moment with all the talent they have and just stacked in every area of the pitch. Another team I would want to avoid from pot three, I think Serbia can really do some damage this year. I mean, they surprised Portugal. They made it back to the World Cup, to a successive World Cup for the first time as an independent nation. They're going to be looking to finally see if they can make it past the group stages. And other teams I would be weary of. I think Iran is well coached. Maybe they could be Asia's flag bearer this edition. Maybe Korea or Japan could do something. It's always tough to tell, but the two teams I would want to avoid most for now are Senegal and Serbia. How about you?
Yeah, I would definitely agree. And you got to be worried about Japan because they did start terribly in the third round of qualifiers in Asia, but all of a sudden, I mean, that performance in Australia was fantastic. I thought they should have won that game 4 or 5-0. Japan are looking really good, and they didn't even call up their full squad, and they were still dominant in possession. And I think they can play against any team, and they play a very exciting brand of football. So I think Japan is definitely a team you want to avoid. Also, Serbia. I mean, if I because me and you we're both USA fans. If we get a group like England, USA, Serbia, Ecuador, bye bye. I don't see us winning it. I don't see us winning any games. That would be very, very difficult to see. But I think Serbia are going to be definitely the team you want to avoid most. I mean, we could even see a group like Portugal, Uruguay, and Serbia. That would be super exciting in my opinion too.
Yeah, for sure. Serbia could really do some damage and upend one of the teams in the first two pots. If we're going to see a scenario where a pot one or two team crashes out, Serbia could deny one of the higher ranked nations.
Yep, exactly. And what about actually before I continue? Thank you very much, Isaac, for your kind donation. Thank you very much, guys. Go check out Isaac if you don't know already. I mean, the guy does fantastic prediction videos and always on top of international football. Thank you very much for your kind donation, bro. Pot three, you want to avoid Senegal and Serbia. I think Iran could surprise this year, though. I think Iran definitely can surprise. I don't think people should be deterred by what happened to them at the end of these qualifiers because they had a lot of COVID issues and injuries. But I think Iran is also their goal, because they have never done it, is get out of the group. And they're going to be, I think they're going to be highly motivated now that it's in the region where they're from. So I think Iran is Skokic, and we know Jahan Bash, we know Osmoon, we know Taremi. They have really good players. And I think they're really going to be motivated to make it out of the group this time around. Isaac, thank you very much for your kind donation. As always, thank you very much. But yeah, I think another team that could be sneaky is Poland, now that they're in pot 3, whereas I think in 2018, I think they were a pot 1 team. So Poland could be a sneaky one as well, don't you think?
They can. It's just a question of whether Robert Lewandowski will get the support he needs. They crashed out in the last World Cup. They were one of the seeded teams that did not make it through, eliminated before the final match day even kicked off. Disappointing in the Euros. They got a little bit of a bye in the playoffs, not playing Russia due to the being banned, so they only had to play one game. I'm not sold on Poland. If you look at their record in recent World Cup history, they do relatively poorly. They haven't made it past the group stages in several decades now, actually. This will be the last hurrah for Robert Lewandowski and for a couple of guys in their squad, and they'll be hoping to go off on a high note here. Of course, they have the quality to do it, and I think you always have to keep an eye on them. As far as a team from pot 3 that I think you want to get most like you want to get, I think it's by far and away Tunisia. I don't agree with them being in pot 3 personally. I don't think they're a pot 3 caliber side, because I look at pot 4 and I see 4 teams there that are arguably better. So if we're moving on to that subject, yeah, if you're a pot 1 or pot 2 team, I think you want the Carthage Eagles.
Yeah, I think so too. I no disrespect to Tunisia, because they always do this. They qualify for World Cups, but I just think there's something about this that you want to get them again. I would highly, if USA got Tunisia, I'll be very happy about it. But Ankit's saying here, can 2 teams who were in the same group in qualifying stages in UEFA end up being in the same group again? Yes, they can. Yeah, so we can see another Portugal versus Serbia, and they might get PTSD Portugal, and I think they want to definitely avoid Serbia, because they pretty much outplayed them in Lisbon and eliminated them from obviously qualifying directly and went through the playoffs. But we'll move on to pot 2, because now this is closer to me and Football Pharaoh's hearts. This is going to be interesting, because we have some powerhouses here in the Dutch, Germany, Uruguay. You got to put Switzerland in there, Croatia, Denmark. And if I'm being kind and if I'm being real, the 2 weakest teams in pot 2 are the USA and Mexico by far. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, by a considerable margin. I would actually right now put us ahead of Mexico. Just because they have not beaten us in the last 4 competitive games. Should have been a 4th consecutive win in Azteca. So I don't think we're the weakest in pot 2 right now. A lot can change in the next 2/3 of the year. But yeah, it's good that we're in pot 2, because we avoid these huge juggernauts, these big teams. It's really the pot 1 that we have to be the most worried about. Is it deserved for us or Mexico to be in pot 2? Most likely not. But what's really interesting with pot 2, we're guaranteed to get at least 1, 2, possibly even 3 groups of death, because you got the Dutch, you got Germany, you got Uruguay. These are teams with World Cup like esteem and pedigree. If you get a group with like Spain and Germany, or like Belgium and the Netherlands, that derby, that would be amazing. You know what I'm saying? So
I think even also if you have Denmark or Croatia, I mean that's also scary for any team. And Switzerland, I think they're like a dark horse in this World Cup too, the Swiss, because they proved very well in the Euros. They topped the group with Italy. You can't write off the Swiss either, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, absolutely not. They broke through in Euro 2020. The one thing that was haunting them for years was to try to win a knockout stage game. I think in Euro 2020, it was the first knockout stage game they won in any major tournament in like 50, 60 years, something like that. Yeah. So Denmark, Euro semifinalists, they had a really long unbeaten streak prior to that loss to Finland in the Euro group with, this Eriksson scare. Denmark is a very lethal side, and they could go on a very deep run in this tournament, I think.
Yeah, exactly. So let's rank it like this. Could you rank like every team in pot 2 from what do you think is the most strongest one to the weakest ones?
That's hard.
Let's do it that, because like I agree with you. I think we're going to get at least 2 or 3 groups of death just based on the teams that are in pot 2, because Germany are now coming back with Hansi Flick. You can't write off the Dutch with Louis van Gaal and his 5 in the back formation. Denmark are sneaky. Who knows about Uruguay now under Diego Alonso? So it's tough to rank these teams in pot 2, but if you could try and give like your strongest to weakest.
By the time you upload this video, I mean, it might change so much, and people are going to be like, "Oh, this guy's crazy. What is he talking about?" Based on right now, I think Hansi Flick has a groove going with this German team. I would say they're first.
Okay.
Second, they can be really inconsistent though. I'm going to say the Dutch. Third, I think I'll go with. I'll go with Denmark. Fourth, I'm gonna go with. Sorry if I'm taking too long. It's really hard.
No, you're good. You're good. Just take your time.
Yeah. So Germany, Dutch, the Danes. I want to see what Uruguay continues to do under Diego Alonso. They rebounded well in the qualifiers. I still want to see more from them before I'm convinced of the complete turnaround. So after Denmark, I would say Switzerland. Then I would say Croatia, Uruguay, USA, Mexico. So, yeah, I think all the European teams. And then,
yeah,
that's what
I agree. I pretty much agree with you. I think it's just I would put USA below Mexico at this point. I can't really I can't trust the USA at this point. But you can't really trust the Mexicans either. I mean, both teams. They're lucky that this is based on FIFA rankings, because if it wasn't for that, I think they would both be lower pot 3 or high pot 4 teams, in my opinion. They just don't look like pot 2 teams at the moment.
Yeah, I agree. They lucked out. Mexico almost squeezed into pot 1 too. Imagine that.
I would have been crazy. But
we'll move on. I would have been really mad.
I would have been mad too. I don't think Mexico deserves to be in pot 1, but shout out to every Mexican out there. And I don't think the USA deserve to be in pot 2, and that's coming from an American here. Right. All right. Pot 1. Everybody's gonna want to get Qatar, right? Everybody. if you don't want Qatar, I don't know what to say. But they were fantastic in the Asian Cup in 2019. You know, they were really fantastic, and they play exciting brand of football. If people don't know, they actually have a former Barcelona, I think B or Barcelona Academy coach in Felix Sanchez. They play a very exciting style of football, but defensively, they're not the strongest. I think definitely they can get at it, but they're going to be very highly motivated being hosts. But I'll just ask you this. What do you think of Qatar's chances? If they get a group, I'll just throw this out there. If Qatar get a group with USA, Tunisia, and they can't get another Asian team. So Cameroon. Oh, no, can't get Cameroon. So the UEFA team. So either Scotland, Wales, or Ukraine. Do you think they would get out of that group?
So in this hypothetical, Qatar, USA, Tunisia, Wales, they might, but I feel like with almost every, if not every simulation you run, they really should not be favored to come out of their group. I wouldn't be surprised if they get a somewhat, wink, wink, favorable group. I shouldn't say that. Qatar is the team in pot 1 everyone wants to avoid. No, this is, they're going to win every game 5-0. A doable group for them, I think Tunisia from pot 3 is a must. And then from pot 2, one of Mexico or the USA. But World Cup Mexico is a different animal.
Yep.
And then from pot 4, they might want Ghana or Australia, New Zealand, Costa Rica,
Yeah.
Provided they qualify.
Yeah, provided they qualify. Yeah, I mean, if Qatar get a group with Germany, Serbia, Ecuador, they're done. They won't win any game, and I think they might get a shellacking, as they would say. I mean, absolute shellacking. They're really fun to watch, though. They're a very exciting team, and Ali Alamoez, a fantastic striker who I think scored 10 goals in the Asian Cup in 2019, if I'm not mistaken. He's an exciting young striker, but I don't know. Usually the hosts do well, but I don't see it this time around. But if you're any teams from pot 2, pot 3, or pot 4, which one team from pot 1 would you want to get? And let's say for the USA, which team would you want to get from pot 1?
Oh, of course, Qatar.
Okay, other than Qatar.
Other than Qatar.
Yeah.
I'm going to get called a madman for this. I actually would prefer Belgium. because I think Belgium sometimes struggles with teams that put numbers behind the ball. Brazil, I don't think we'd get anything from them.
Yep.
Argentina is on fire. They have a 31 match unbeaten streak. They currently have the longest ongoing. They're almost cracked 40 points in the qualifying phase. England right now, I think they got something building. You know, the last few tournaments in the Euros, the last World Cup, the Nations League, they're making it to the latter stages. Spain under Luis Enrique can, once they sort out and they get like a consistent, reliable goal scorer, maybe they can get something more out of the likes of Alvaro Morata. They're going to be lethal. Portugal have all the pieces, but Fernando Santos is holding them back. I still don't want to play Portugal. And France speaks for itself. So I think by default, I'll take the waning golden generation, even though, of course, we would most likely lose that. But I'm going to say Belgium. What about you?
I would agree with Belgium. This is the last chance. If they're ever going to do something this golden generation, which I don't think they will, because I think their best shot was Euro 2016. I thought they should have won that tournament, but they fumbled, and they had a great chance to World Cup 2018. They fumbled, and I just don't think this golden generation can do it anymore. So I think I would want Belgium. And the other team I would want is probably England. I know I'm going to be called crazy, but I don't know if I can trust them yet. Just because of Southgate, I don't know, but definitely they'll beat any team in pot. Well, okay, I see any team in pot two. I think they'll get a tough game from Germany, Netherlands, and Denmark, and Switzerland and Croatia, from any of the European teams. But because Spain, they're really good, right? Luis Enrique is a fantastic manager. Portugal, they got the talent. They don't have the manager. Argentina, you don't want to face them right now. France, forget about it. Brazil, you know Brazil. So I think England, while I do respect the English for what they have done, I feel like you could still get at this team, maybe mentally and on the pitch. But we're going to see how well they do in the Nations League. But all right, Football Pharaoh, let's just start discussing some possible groups of death.
At the end of the day, sorry, just to add, England is England. So you could always we did it once in 2010. So
exactly, Rob Green. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Rob Green.
The goalkeeper.
The goalkeeper, exactly. So I want you to give me one group of death that possibly could happen, then I'll give you maybe mine as well.
Ooh, there's a lot. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's see. A possible group of death could be Spain, Germany, Senegal, and Spain, Germany, Peru.
That would be insane. Oh my god! Yeah, people, give your group of death in the chat as well. I'll pull them up on the screen. For me, a group of death that could be really tasty would be Portugal, Uruguay, Serbia, and then Canada. That would be an interesting group, and I think that would be a real test to Canada as well. And I don't know. I think if any of those teams could qualify out of that group, in my opinion, especially if it is Portugal, Serbia, Uruguay, and Canada, I would give any shot to any team to qualify out of that group, and it would be very difficult to pick one of those two.
Oh, for sure. This might be the most difficult World Cup to pick. I started making predictions for World Cups, and I've been viewing them since 1998, but I didn't start making predictions till 2010. With each passing World Cup, the number of teams I get correct and advance is going down and down. I remember I got 12 right in 2010, then I got 10, and then I got 9 in 2018. It's just it's difficult, and that speaks to how much the game is growing, and the gap is closing for a lot of these national sides. Another group of death. Let's see. I would say Brazil, Holland. Brazil, Holland. I think Morocco, if they can, max out, and then Ukraine, Wales, the UEFA winner. That could be a difficult one too.
Yeah, that could be difficult. This is actually a good point that Sumo made, that Portugal often gets the group of death, and that is true. That is true. 2010, I think they had Ivory Coast and Brazil and then North Korea, which that wasn't the greatest. 2014, they obviously had Germany, USA, Ghana. They finished last in that group, if I'm not mistaken. 2018, they also had a difficult group with Iran, Morocco, and Spain. So, Portugal usually do get the bad burden of these draws, and if it happens again, I don't know about Fernando Santos this time around. All right. England, Germany. Yeah, there's a lot. People are coming up with some good groups. Adam is asking, do you guys think Morocco could surprise? You want to ask that? Answer that first, Football Pharaoh.
Sure. I think if they get a group that's navigable and um, like I mentioned earlier when we were talking about Morocco, if you got some guys come back into the squad, Mahid Halilhodzic like reconciles his relationship with some of these players, and Morocco sort of kicks its habit of underperforming in tournaments. This also being the first World Cup, in the Middle East, I imagine there'll be a lot of Moroccans traveling. Morocco being a North African nation, maybe that could, galvanize it a little bit. I thought they got really unlucky in the World Cup last time around. They got that really tough group with Spain and Portugal. They lost that last minute goal against Iran. And Vahid Halilhodzic, he did it with Algeria in 2014. And I think that Morocco, you cannot sleep on them at all. I have a question, though. Maybe someone in the comment section can answer this. Is it possible for there to be a group with no European teams? So, for example, could we get Brazil, USA, Japan, and New Zealand, or would that not be possible because it would give another group 3 European teams?
Yeah, that I would not know. Somebody in the chat, if they could answer that, that would be fantastic. But it is, I have no clue. I have no clue if that's possible. I will not be covering the CONCACAF Nations League draw. I think that's next week. Is that next week, Football Pharaoh?
Oh, I have no idea.
I have no idea.
I've been
honestly
focusing on the World Cup so much.
Yeah, same here. What group do you think is best for Iran in order to qualify for the next round? I'll answer this one first, and then you can. For me, it cannot be Qatar in their same group because obviously both AFC teams. So I'll just put Portugal in there. I would say either USA or Mexico, and they'll need Ghana. I think that's if Iran want to, for the first time ever in their history, qualify out of the group, they need that sort of group.
Yeah, I agree with Portugal. They were in the same group last time around. They actually almost won that match. They almost knocked Portugal out. I think Mehdi Taremi, he missed a header that could have won. They got a little bit of history of Portugal too. They've been in the same group with them twice already this century. I think Portugal. Yeah, I would lean towards Portugal too. I think also maybe England. They could stifle them defensively. I'm gonna go with Portugal, USA, Iran, of course, and New Zealand.
Yeah, if they do. Yeah, I mean, New Zealand have a great opportunity. They're only 90 minutes away. It's only one game on a neutral venue. So I think that's definitely played into their hands, that sort of situation. But let's talk about a group of life for any team, basically. We had it in 2018 when we had Senegal, Poland, Colombia, Japan. So give me your group of life. What would be a group of life for you?
Okay. Sometimes there's overlap between a group of life and a group of death.
Yeah.
I think a group of life might have Qatar in it. So Qatar, maybe USA, Mexico, or Croatia. And then so Qatar, USA, maybe Tunisia, and then maybe Ecuador. That'd be kind of pretty open, I would think.
Yeah, I would say something like Qatar. I would say Qatar, Mexico. Yeah, I guess can't be South Korea, can't be any AFC teams. Tunisia, and then Cameroon. No, it can't be Cameroon either. So then, yeah, New Zealand or somebody like that. Ecuador. I mean, Ecuador could get a good draw in this group as well in this draw because they could easily get an easy draw in my opinion because they can avoid one of the CONMEBOL teams, so Brazil, Argentina, and they could be drawn with Qatar, and that would be very beneficial to Ecuador's point of view when it comes to the draw tomorrow. But let's get to this because we are both USA fans. What's a draw you desperately do not want to see tomorrow? If you saw that draw and you were like, we're screwed.
There's a part of me that wants a difficult group because I think that for these young lads, they might need the experience to build on for something for 2026. Of course, more than anything else, I would like to see us advance and go as far as possible. A draw that but if I don't want a monstrous group, I would say a draw that I would want to avoid would be Brazil, us. I don't want Senegal. I really don't. They already caused me trauma twice this year. I don't know what they have against me. If we draw with Senegal tomorrow, I'm gonna be like consulting with like a mystic and asking what I did in a past life to offend Senegal. But and then I guess we're pot four. Well, it can't be a South American team. Um, the UEFA winner.
Yeah.
Or alternatively, France, us, Serbia, and Ecuador, Peru. So like France, USA, Serbia, Ecuador, Peru. That would be really tough.
Yeah. Well, this could easily happen too, Football Pharaoh. We get Ghana again in the same group.
Bro, I hope not, man. If we get Ghana and then we lose to them, it'll feel like I would be like, did we really progress? We're just slightly more talented than we were before. Did we really progress as a federation?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh,
exactly.
I hope not.
I hope not either. But
what about you?
If we get this group, I don't know what to do. I'm just gonna have to pray. If we get Argentina, us, Serbia, and then the UEFA playoff winner, it's GG. It is going to be awesome, but oh man, that's going to be a tough group for us, especially with, I think Argentina will beat us 3-1 with the way they're going. Serbia, I think, are stronger than us, and I think Wales or Scotland or Ukraine can beat us as well. But like I said to you before we started the stream, the USA have time. We have time, and that's the most important thing.
Yeah.
Before this World Cup. But did we talk about what group we would like to have? For me as well, because my girlfriend, she's half Portuguese. It would be civil war if we had Portugal in the same group in the house. But other than that, I think we have to avenge the loss in '98 to Iran. So I would like to get Iran as well. And I think they would like to get us as well. I don't know why, but I think both countries kind of want to play against each other, not just, for political reasons, but, just for '98, because it was like a massive game back then, especially. And then I guess Ecuador, because that's pretty much who we can get, or then Ghana or Cameroon.
So you want to see Portugal, USA, Iran, and Ecuador or Cameroon?
Yeah.
I think that's doable for the US. I think that's definitely doable. Imagine if we draw with Qatar and we play them in the opening match. That's going to be – the internet's going to be crazy. Qatar, USA in the opening game. I feel like we don't if that happened and we don't win that opening match, our World Cup is done. It's done. Like, it's like, okay. I just don't want a repeat of 1998. I don't want Greg Berhalter to literally be the next Steve Sampson, basically.
Yeah.
That's what I'm worried about.
I fully agree. Here's a question for both of us. I'll answer first. What big nation have improved the most from the last World Cup, and what big nation has declined since the last World Cup?
Great question.
A great question, Calvin Dino. The nation that has improved the most, I think, from the last World Cup, I think it's Spain. I just think Spain were in such turmoil because of, the manager sacked before the World Cup, all that sort of stuff. Also, Belgium. Not Belgium, excuse me. Belgium were the team that have declined, and that's because their golden generation has gotten older. But I would say Spain have improved the most, and Argentina, because they don't have a tattooed bulldog running around the sideline. What about you, Football Pharaoh?
I think Argentina is an excellent candidate for that. 2018 was a disaster. They really flirted with a group stage exit. Entering in that tournament, they looked in dire straits. Entering this one, they're coming in hot. And I think winning that Copa America, them actually this generation breaking through and winning something for the first time in almost 30 years, it could, I think it's going to add extra motivation to go on and try to add another trophy. So I think Argentina is a solid choice. Spain as well. And I would say Germany has improved a lot. In just ever since Yogi Löw left about a year ago, I think they turned it around their qualifying group. Really talented squad. Hansi Flick, it's the Bayern effect, man. I'm telling you. Like, he came in for Bayern Munich, things flipped on like a switch. He came in Germany. They're looking really, really good. So, yeah, Argentina, Spain, and Germany, I think, have made the most improvements.
Yep, I agree. He was a great manager at Chile. I'm not disputing that, but 2018 was a complete and utter disaster if you're Argentinian, and I'm an Argentinian fan, and it was just a complete calamity. He didn't know what his best lineup was. It was a complete disaster. I've never seen an Argentina side so poor.
The plan A, plan B, and plan C was messy.
It was all just messy. Here's a good question from Ahmed Suleiman. Thank you for tuning in. Which nation in the World Cup is most surprising to you, Football Pharaoh? Which country that qualified surprised you the most? I guess is what he's asking.
The fact that they made it, right?
Yeah.
Ghana for now. Ghana, considering where they were in AFCON, they lost to Comoros. They bombed out of their group. The two-legged tie against Nigeria, that was always going to be competitive because of the cultural and sporting rivalry with Nigeria, but I didn't think they were going to pull through, even if it was by a slim margin, like away goals rule. I thought Ghana were still going through like this sort of like 2018 vibe, and it could be the case that they will, and they'll do poorly in this World Cup. But yeah, Ghana surprised me the most in making. But congratulations to them to make it back. I want to pose a question to you in the audience, something we didn't touch upon yet.
Yep.
What big team do you think could be a ripe candidate to crash out, whether in the group stages or maybe the round of 16?
Okay. Whew. What big country? You know what? Even though they did qualify to this World Cup through the playoffs, I honestly do think Portugal, and that's just because of the manager.
Yeah.
I know he's changed a little bit, but I just can't trust him still. I just cannot trust Fernando Santos. I generally can't. Another team that could, crash out early, I mean, you have to go with the World Cup curse, and that's France. It's just because of the curse. And that's the only reason why. They should not be crashing out with that team. I mean, come on. If that team crashes out, that would be crazy, but you can never go against the curse. What about you?
Stans, I'm with you on Portugal. Portugal, they tend to do better in Euros than they do in World Cups, not just because they won Euro 2016, but I remember, between like Euro 2000 and 2016, they would make the latter stages. But then when they get to the World Cup, they're either hot or cold. Like they either do well or they've had a couple of group stage exits so far this century. If Santos gets this wrong, they could be the pot one team that crashes out. And what's really interesting is that there's always at least one pot one team that doesn't make it through. I believe under the 32 team format since 1998, there's always been one that did not make it. Another team, if they get a tough group that could crash out, I think could be Belgium if they're not careful. And yeah, I would lean towards Portugal and Belgium. Let's see here. Who do you think could be a surprise quarterfinalist?
For me, I got to go with Canada. I think Canada, if they can get a somewhat decent group, and when I mean decent group, I would say a France, Uruguay, South Korea, and Canada, I think they could make it to a quarterfinal. I generally do think so. If we're talking, are we specifically talking like a team in pot 4, pot 3? I would say Canada and Senegal or Serbia, they have the best shot of making it to a quarterfinal, because always there's going to be a team like this. Last World Cup we saw, Russia was a pot 1 team, but they weren't really a pot 1 team. We saw Sweden make it to a quarterfinal. So there's always one team in the final 2 pots that make it to a quarterfinal. What about you?
I'm with you on Canada as a possible candidate for that role. If we're looking at Asia, I think that the World Cup in Asia, we could see them put in an overall collectively better performance. 2 teams from Asia that I'm looking at to possibly make the quarters. I think Iran could do something. I think they're very tactically organized in their discipline, the way that they're set up. And I think maybe even South Korea. But again, though, it depends on the groups, I think Serbia can make the quarters. Me personally, I would not consider it a surprise, so that's why I don't add them to the list.
Yeah. That's because I see people saying Denmark. I don't think they're going to be. I don't think it would be a surprise if they made it to the quarterfinals, because I think they're that good. I think they could easily be a pot 1 team. So I want to put them as a surprise. I think the Euro this summer, it was kind of a surprise, but at the same time, it really wasn't, because this team in the last couple of years under Kasper Hjulmand has been playing fantastic football. So are you seeing a scenario, because I want to ask people in the chat as well, Football Pharaoh, that we're going to get something similar to 2002 World Cup, where we got a bunch of upsets? I mean, South Korea, Turkey made it to the semifinals. Could you see something similar here, because this is being played in the winter? you know, just so many weird circumstances, COVID and that sort of stuff. Like, could you see something like that happen again?
I could. And historically speaking, World Cups that are held outside of Europe have more non-European teams making it past the group stages than in
Mm.
World Cups held in European soil. Of the 16 spots, I'm a nerd with no life. I looked this up. In the last 20 plus years, the average number of UEFA teams that make it past the first round on European World Cups is like 9 or 10. They take like 9 or 10 of the spots.
Okay.
In non European Cups, they usually take around 6 or 7, so noticeably less. 2002, you had one team from each confederation minus Oceania in the quarterfinals. You had countries from all over the world. I think we could see something like that again, especially if the calendar throws off um, the domestic leagues for all these big European nations. But yeah, I mean, we'll see. We'll see. Um, who do you think could be a surprise semifinalist?
Surprise semifinalist. I would have. I don't know if they're going to be a surprise. I generally do think Serbia could make a semifinals. I generally do think so.
Wow.
Anybody else that could be a surprise? I guess if Denmark made it to a semifinals, that would be a surprise because I think a lot of people would say, okay, quarterfinals, and maybe they're just not good enough. For me, I would love to see Senegal make it to a semifinals. I think it would be excellent for football, and I would love to see it. And I just think that Aliou Cisse here, I was a little bit skeptical about him before the AFCON because I just thought that tactically, is he the right guy? But you know what? Kudos to him. They've done brilliant so far. So I would say Serbia to a semifinals would be my surprise, maybe.
Okay. I think that's a good pick. If Senegal or another African team were to make the semis, that'd be history in the making and be awesome to witness. First time ever an African country makes it to the last four, especially considering the new low they hit last time around when nobody advanced past the group stages for like the first time since like the early 80s or something like that. It was really disappointing. I think the most likely candidate for a surprise semifinalist is like a sort of like a second tier European team. So like Serbia and I would say Denmark, but I'm really high on Denmark to where like I'm considering maybe it wouldn't be a surprise if they really like hit their form and they get like a doable path. So yeah, I'm gonna go with Denmark. That's not a prediction. That's not a prediction.
Okay. All right. Okay.
I think they could make
I was gonna hold you to it, Football Pharaoh. I was gonna hold you to it and be like, I got the video evidence that you said this.
Well, last time we had Croatia as a finalist.
It's true.
Imagine if we get like Denmark or I don't know, Switzerland or someone making it that far. And all it takes is like the curtains opening up and like a path being open, and you're right there.
Yep, exactly. You know what? I'm going to ask this to people as well before the draw happens tomorrow. And then, before we know like the route that possible teams could make going to a semifinals, finals, what would right now, obviously before the draw and before the World Cup begins, what is your final four teams in this year's World Cup?
Oh, you're asking me or the chat?
Yeah, I'm asking you. And also I'll pull up what the chat says too.
Final four. I think Brazil are going to be in the last four. If they're not, it's a disaster.
Yep, I agree.
The way they're pounding South America, there's no excuse to not make the last four. Probably not even an excuse to not finish on the medal podium. My last four: Brazil, Spain,
Ooh.
Argentina, and I'm gonna go with. I think they're going to stay consistent, not very flashy, but effective. I'm going to go with England, actually. I think England could make it back to the semis again. So Brazil, Argentina, Spain, and England. How about you?
I mean, if that's the semifinals, wow, the internet might break. Let me just say that. I mean, if the internet would really break, I mean, like totally break if it was Portugal versus Argentina in the final. I mean, that would be the most viewed game ever. Well, we know why. But everybody would want that. I don't know if a lot of people around the world will want that, but if that was the final, oh boy. What do I think the final four will be right now before looking at the draw? I'm really riding high on Argentina. I just think they have vastly improved with Scaloni, and they have a system where they don't rely just on Messi. So I would go with them. I have to go with Brazil. I mean, Football Fire, you follow CONMEBOL qualifiers. I mean, they're not even just beating teams; they're destroying them.
Yeah.
I mean, and they're not even. They don't even play their best starting 11 each and every game. It's even the players on the bench that are just going to like La Paz and beating them 4-0 with guys like Martinelli, Lucas Paqueta, Rick Charlison is ridiculous to me. So, and people can say, oh, it's Bolivia. Trust me, La Paz is probably one of the most difficult away venues you can go to in World Cup qualifiers. So I would go with Brazil and Argentina. See, I have a funky feeling about Louis van Gaal, you know? I have a funky feeling. I have a funky feeling about Louis van Gaal. He's done this before with the Dutch when nobody thought they were going to do well in the 2014 World Cup. Remember, you know, they were in that group of death and they were with Spain, Chile, and Australia, and everybody was like, oh, you know what? The Dutch might go round of 16 max. I feel like he's such a good manager and he's done this before. I think he knows what he's doing. And I might have to put Germany. I think Hansi Flick is a great manager, but it's just a matter of who's going to get them the goals. I am not trusting Timo Werner. I'm sorry. I am not trusting Timo Werner to win me a World Cup, so it has to be Kai Havertz.
Those would be the same 4 teams from 2014. Brazil, Argentina, Holland, and Germany.
I didn't even do that on purpose. Wow.
Oh, I know. It was just an observation. Yeah, I always considered what Van Gaal did in 2014 like one of the greatest, like, improvised, like, patchwork jobs a manager did, coming in quickly and just a lot of people, myself included, like, they were in a tough group with like Spain and Chile that year. Didn't even have them coming out of the first round. They finished 3rd place in that tournament. Louis van Gaal, he's a funny man. He's very brash and outspoken. He doesn't hold. If he were to be a World Cup winning manager, I could get on board with that. That'd be pretty cool.
That would be pretty cool. There is a new curse. Every time in last 3 European champions, top scorer won the World Cup with his national team. So I think the Euro 2020 top goal scorer was Ronaldo. Let's see.
Wait, how is that a curse? Wait, he said that the last 3
I don't think it's a curse, but it's like a
good sign.
I guess a good sign. Yeah, basically it's a good sign. But
okay.
That would be very interesting. I'm trying to think of another question. I had a question. Who do you think? Actually, you know what? Let's discuss it like this way. What is the biggest disappointment which country that most disappointed you big time? I know it's probably Italy, but another team other than Italy probably, because everybody's going to say Italy. But if people in the chat as well, what's one country that didn't qualify that majorly disappointed you?
Wow. Italy, it's devastating for them. I'm not surprised that it happened. They had some really worrying signs when they were closing out their qualifying group at the end of last year. And when that draw came out with Portugal, and I was like, these guys need to be careful. They got to be really careful. So the biggest disappointment, I think Colombia missing out, man. That's like going 7 straight games without scoring a goal. All the talent they have in that team. I mean, they dropped points in games they should have won, and credit to them getting the 6 points, closing out, technically finishing 1 point behind Peru in the playoff. But that game they lost at home to Peru, where
was
Peru,
the difference maker.
That was the difference maker. And Colombia were going at them in that game, and Peru were biding their time and like holding them back, absorbing pressure. That goal they scored at the end. Even if Colombia had gotten another draw, which they got so good at getting draws, they would have squeezed through into the playoff spot. I think Colombia is a big loss. I thought they had at least one more World Cup cycle in them. How about you?
I really thought Colombia. If I'm going to take it to a different confederation, I'd probably have to go with Algeria or Ivory Coast, just based on the pedigree they've had in World Cups and how well they have done in the last couple of years. I think those 2 teams missing out. And if Australia don't qualify, that's a big bad moment for them, especially. I thought, you know what, Australia, okay, they're a little bit in a rebuild mode, but I mean, you can't even make it to like a intercontinental. Do you trust them beating UAE at this point? I don't.
I think they're favorites, but I don't trust them, especially that one off in Qatar. I imagine if there's going to be fans there, you might see a lot of Emiratis.
Yep.
that make the travel. That could be like a de facto home game. Even if they come through that, I mean, they got, you know what's interesting? They were in the same qualifying group with the Saudis and the Japanese last time around, and they needed to go to the playoff, but they lucked out because they drew in the draw with the CONCACAF team. They got South America lined up for them. And
Yeah.
they did it before back in 06. They beat Uruguay.
Uruguay.
Yeah, but that squad had the likes of like Viduka and Bresciano and Harry and Kuhl and Neil and a whole bunch and Mark Schwarzer and Gold. That was a good Australian generation. This team's not cutting it. I think they're in a lot of danger to miss out, and I think they will miss out.
Yep. Here's a good question. Because you know what, big up to Canada. Me and Football Pharaoh have followed them for quite a while, and I said they would qualify to the World Cup this time around. And Alexandre Trudeau, I don't know if you're related to the president, but big up to you. Which teams in pot 1 and pot 2 do Canada match up best against with their counterattack and pace? Fantastic question. Fantastic question. I'll answer this one first. Obviously, you want to get Qatar if you're Canada. I mean, I mean that's the number one you want to get. Another team would be Spain.
I agree.
And that's because I think they would match up really well with Spain, where they know we're not going to have a lot of the ball, but you can go at Spain's defense. I think it's not the most secure yet. And they're going to obviously play possession style of football. So I think Spain will be the best matchup, in my opinion, against Canada, because Canada have proven in these World Cup qualifiers that they can sit back and very much hurt teams on the counterattack. And another team, in part 2, I would say maybe Switzerland. Because I think Uruguay are going to be a frustrating team. I think they'll be a bit more defensive against Canada. What about you, Football Pharaoh?
A team from pot 1 that Canada might match up well. I agree. I think Spain, tactically speaking, stylistically. Another one could be Portugal. It could be Portugal. I think that looking at France, that's just too much. I think France are too strong. Maybe even England. Maybe they can do what we did in 2010 and get like a draw out of that. I don't know. Canada's they might not make it past the group stages. I don't know, but they're going to turn heads. I think that they're going to, like I said earlier, I think they're going to get a lot of respect from pot 2. A team they could match up well with. Maybe Switzerland. I think they could stifle them. And I think maybe Uruguay, because like I said, Uruguay, I want to see more. Like they got those wins when Tabarez left. They got those wins over Venezuela and Paraguay, but Venezuela and Paraguay, they had miserable World Cup qualifying cycles. I want to see how Uruguay. I want to know if the revamp post Tabarez is real. I want to see if it's real. So, yeah, I mean, Canada, they're going to have a chance, of course.
Yeah, they are. They are, definitely. And Albert says, is it possible to get more than one group of death? I think we're going to get 2 or 3. I generally do think so. With the groups, the teams in pot 3 and pot 2, this could get interesting tomorrow's draw.
Yeah.
I generally do think so. What 3 teams should Tunisia get to make it to the knockouts? Well, Qatar, USA, or Mexico.
Sadly.
And then the UEFA playoff winner, because that has to be one of those teams.
Well, they could get New Zealand technically, I guess.
Oh, New Zealand too. Yep.
Qatar, USA, Tunisia, and New Zealand. If we get a group like that, and we're in that group and we don't advance or we finish bottom, I'm gonna have to end my channel. You'll never see me again.
I will deactivate from everything. I couldn't show my face.
That's my supervillain origin story. Right.
You know what? This is a good question. We're not going to do 32 teams, but give me your 5 best teams that missed out on this year's World Cup.
Ooh.
Not based on pedigree, but the way they've been playing in the last couple of years.
Okay, so the 5 biggest teams that missed out based on recent form?
Just recent couple of years, basically.
I just remembered tying this into the previous question a few minutes ago when we were talking about biggest disappointment, and you said Algeria, I said Colombia. I forgot about Sweden, so I have to
Multiple jobs.
Dude, here's what I don't understand. They beat Spain. Okay. Then they lost to Greece. Greece is not an easy opponent. Okay. Tricky side. They lost to Greece. They still had direct qualification in their hand if they just avoided a loss to Spain on the final match day. Easier said than done. But then they lost to Georgia, and they lost their position so badly that heading into that final match day, they had to beat Spain again in order to qualify. And they had direct qualification in their hands, and they blew it. And now they've now missed 3 of the last 4 World Cups. And it's a bottle job, man. They should have been there directly. Spain should have been in the playoffs.
Yep.
I think bringing Zlatan back was a mistake. I don't think he jives well with them. I just so Sweden is one. Another what was
Italy.
Italy, Algeria is a big one. Nigeria,
Colombia.
of course. Yeah, Nigeria. Nigeria usually they've become somewhat of a staple at the World Cup. They're gone. I'm a little disappointed in Panama too because they started off really strongly in CONCACAF, and then they just couldn't get results on the road. And that last home game, the second to last home game where they dropped to Honduras, you can't be doing that. That sunk them.
Yeah, that's something big time. Oh, any other big teams in Europe that didn't qualify? I'm trying to think.
Italia.
Yeah, I mean that's
Sweden.
a given. I mean,
Sweden.
Yeah.
Personally, I believe we'll never know for sure. I think if the whole Ukraine situation did happen, I think Russia might have qualified because they would have in the pot they were in. They had 2 home games. They had that home match. They were hosting
That
Poland,
is true.
and they almost qualified directly. They're in a group with all the Slavic teams. Remember, with Croatia and all.
Mm-hmm.
I think they might have made it to the World Cup if they didn't, invade a sovereign nation. Yeah.
I don't think actually because people are saying Chile. To me, I think just this golden generation are just too old. I think it's just they tried it one more time, one last dance, like Michael Jordan. I don't think they were ever going to qualify, in my opinion. I just don't think they were better than Uruguay or Colombia or these teams. So, yeah, a lot of big teams missed. Not Ireland. They were terrible. I mean, didn't they lose to Luxembourg at home during these qualifiers, if I'm not mistaken?
Oh, yeah. Ireland were gone with 2 or 3 match days remaining. It was Portugal and Serbia in that group all day. Austria and Czech, they're nations of past World Cup esteem, but they haven't really done anything in modern contemporary footballing history. Here's a question we can answer and ask the audience. Who do you think those 3 teams that we do not know the identity of yet will be to comprise pot 4? I'm going to say I think Australia will edge past the Emirates and lose to Peru. So I think Peru is going to qualify. I think Costa Rica has to beat New Zealand. The way they turned things around in their campaign, they got 19 out of 21 points in the last. That's ridiculous. They might be the most informed team right now on CONCACAF. So I think Costa Rica, they have to beat New Zealand. Otherwise, I think it's kind of embarrassing. So Peru, Costa Rica, that UEFA spot, I lean towards Wales for the moment.
Yeah.
How about you?
I would agree. I would think it's Peru, Wales, and if it ain't Costa Rica, but I'm telling you, Football Pharaoh, it's on a neutral venue in New Qatar, so anything's possible. I mean, although New Zealand, if this is not the same New Zealand, by the way, guys, fun fact, New Zealand were the only undefeated team in the 2010 World Cup as they drew every single game. I don't think it's that side, but I mean,
it's possible.
It's definitely possible, and I'm pretty sure Wales is at home against Scotland. I think it is Wales that is hosting Scotland. Do you remember Football Pharaoh?
Yes, they're at home, and not only that, but because the Scotland-Ukraine game is being pushed to June, Wales have only 1 game to worry about. So Scotland-Ukraine have to play that, and then they go away to Wales, and it could be in a similar way to how Poland benefited from having to only play 1 game and at home. Wales could be the big winner out of that. But what's interesting is that Wales suffers from the Ukraine invasion because if you look at the FIFA ranking, they would have been a top-tier pot 3 side. They would have been somewhere where Senegal, Iran were, or possibly they might have maybe done enough to crack the bottom of pot 2. But they're likely going to get a tough group now because they're in pot 4. But you know what? They're not going to complain about it because they haven't been to the World Cup since 1950.
I would love to see Bale do it. I think he deserves it. Fantastic performance against Australia. Fantastic. UK Pat is asking what would be a good draw for England. I mean, if you get USA or Mexico, that's a good draw. And then if you get South Korea or Japan or Tunisia, that's a good one. And then obviously you're going to want to get, Ghana or Saudi Arabia or these teams. So I think that would be the best draw for England. But if if we get like a group with England, Germany, Senegal, and Canada, I mean, if you're English, I wouldn't be so confident. I wouldn't be so confident in that group.
Yeah, me neither.
I
What's
would.
that's like a neutral. What's a group that would be really juicy? It could be a group of death, or it doesn't have to necessarily be a group of death. But what group do you think would be like really like and entertaining to watch?
From a footballing side, I would say, oh, this is a good question. You know what? I think like a Brazil, Germany, Senegal, and maybe Wales. I would really be intrigued by that. I think that would be super intriguing to see how Brazil would do against Germany and Senegal, because Senegal, as unfortunately, Football Pharaoh, they are a very good defensive team. They just lack goal scoring. If they can sort out that goal scoring, watch out.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah, Senegal. It's up to them whether or not they want to shift into a higher gear at any moment. There's so many different combinations of groups I would love seeing or would not mind seeing. Off the top of my head, I would like to see something like Belgium, because I think Belgium could be susceptible this year. They wouldn't be like a domineering clear favorite. Belgium, maybe. Belgium, Denmark, Senegal, and Ecuador. Belgium, Denmark, Senegal, Ecuador. That's a tough one right there.
That is a very tough one. I would not put my money on Belgium finishing first in that group. I wouldn't. I think that would be. Somebody said, "Oh, I would like to see Belgium versus." You know what? I think Japan would beat them. I'm because obviously I know Belgium have a lot of quality, but you got to be worried about this Japanese side once again. They are really good, but what big teams from pot 1 and pot 2 do you guys see drawing each other? Probably Germany with one from pot 1, Brazil. Yeah, I think a big team like Germany or Netherlands, if you're any team from pot 1, you want to avoid them big time. Just speaking, I think if we get a Brazil-Germany in a group stage,
I actually have a feeling we're gonna get that. I think it's just a hunch. I think
it's a hunch.
Brazil, Germany.
I have a hunch that we're gonna get Portugal and Serbia in the same group. I just have a funky feeling. I don't know why. The stars aligned to have it happen, in my opinion.
Rematch,
exactly. But guys, big up to everybody. There's 65 of you watching, and there's only 43 likes. This is a World Cup draw discussion. What are you doing? We're 7 months away from the World Cup. You guys gotta like the stream. Also, go check out Football Pharaoh's channel. The link to his channel is in the description down below. So go give a subscribe. Hit the subscribe button on Football Pharaoh's channel. I'm horrible with these sort of things, promoting stuff. Football Pharaoh, I apologize.
No.
I'm not the greatest at it, but yeah, guys, go check out Football Pharaoh. The guy, he just gave you some amazing stats about how UEFA teams do outside of Europe. That's the dedication, and I know Football Pharaoh absolutely loves international football, and I do as well. I would all day, every day pick international football over club football just because of the storylines and the unpredictability of it. But you have to go give his channel a like, because the knowledge you have, Football Pharaoh, it is amazing.
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate that a lot. Did we discuss if you have a prediction for a big team that you think not just could but will crash out, or if you think all of them will be all right, then that's fine.
I think the biggest team that could crash out, it will be Belgium or Portugal. Because like you say, Portugal have not done well in the last couple of World Cups. 2018, okay, yes, they barely got out of the group. 2014, I thought it was a disaster. I know they didn't have the greatest manager in Paulo Bento, but they should have been doing better there. And 2010, they made it to the round of 16 or quarterfinals? I can't remember. I think it was round of 16 for Portugal. I think they faced Spain. Yeah, it was round of 16. They faced Spain. I remember that. Yeah, it was because I think it was Puyol's header or something like that. But yeah, I think it would be Portugal or Belgium. That would be the biggest teams that, because like you say, we always see a pot one team go out.
Yeah, usually, yeah. But there's a first time for everything. Also, a fun fact is that under the current format, I think maybe going back further than that, a pot one team has won the World Cup. So in all likelihood, one except for Qatar, those 7 teams we see right there, the world champions, most likely going to come out from one of those. But we'll see. Maybe the Dutch or the Germans will say otherwise.
Or Denmark, or the USA.
Yeah, I don't know. I will say though, like if we get because I think you would agree, the final we got in 2018, France Croatia, that was a very hipsterish final. Like you had a powerhouse versus like a sort of like a non-powerhouse, but still like a second tier team. What would be like a hipster final? Like if you picked one big team versus a team that could make the final, I would say Brazil Denmark.
Yep, that's what I was exactly thinking too.
Brazil Denmark could be a hipster one.
I think another hipster sort of kind of one would be, I mean, obviously, I don't think this is going to happen, but this would be a cool hipster. Would be Argentina, Switzerland. That would be interesting. I would love to see, Senegal or Morocco or any CAF team or AFC team or CONCACAF team make it to the final. I highly doubt it. I would love to see it, but I highly doubt it. But yeah, I mean, one last question, because we don't know any of these 3 teams that will qualify. But I got to ask you about Peru. How do you think they can do one step better this time around in the World Cup?
Yes, in my view, they were the best team last time that did not advance past the group stages. I thought they were really unlucky in that match against Denmark. They ran Denmark off the pitch, but Denmark caught them on the counter. I think Paulo Guerrero missed a very good opportunity to score against France in their game. I have some Peruvian friends, so I would love to see Peru make it out of the group stage this time around. So I'm hoping they do, and hoping they qualify and they get a doable group. And here's a fun fact. I don't know if people believe in like omens or signs or whatever. Peru has played in 5 World Cups, only 5. And every time since 1930, every time they've made it to a World Cup, they played at some point against the eventual winners.
Oh, okay.
Neat little coincidence. They lost to Uruguay in 1930. I think they lost to Argentina in 78. They lost to Italy in 82, and they lost to France in 2018. Yeah.
Wow. See, guys, I would never have known that. Wow, that is an amazing fact. Who do you think will do better, Peru or Ecuador? Obviously, it's tough to say, but on momentum-wise, at the moment, I mean, Peru are they're on fire. They did the exact same thing, Football Pharaoh. They did the exact same thing as 2018 World Cup qualifiers. Started terribly, and they just build their way up to qualifying. It is fantastic what Ricardo Gareca is doing with this side.
Yeah, it is. I would pick Peru. I think Ecuador, they didn't finish very strongly, but they had a sizable cushion, so they could have afforded to. For now, I think Ecuador might be South America's weak link heading into that tournament, which is actually a good segue to another question, which is, let's talk about confederations as a whole. Who you look at the field that Africa has, the field that Asia has, the field that CONMEBOL, CONCACAF. Who do you think, I mean, I guess the obvious answer is South America, but of the non-European South American confederations, which confederation do you think sent the strongest crop of teams that could outperform the other confederations?
Ooh, that's a great question. I don't know about CAF. I just don't know about Senegal. I don't know about them. They're like a bogey team. They're either going to do really well, I think, or they could really do poorly. That's just my opinion about Senegal, because as much as it's great to see Cameroon, Ghana, Tunisia qualify, this is my humble opinion. I think they're group stage exit teams. And Morocco, they're also sort of a bogey team where we don't know what to expect from them. They could also rise to the occasion. So I think this might be CONCACAF's time, Football Pharaoh. I think this is the time.
If Mexico and USA get their act together, which I hope, CONCACAF's my favorite confederation, of course. I'm gonna lean towards Asia. I think Asia might be primed to have a really good World Cup. They might send a couple teams through, maybe 2 or 3 teams. Because I think all of these sides, including Saudi Arabia, they're better versions of themselves now than they were 4 years ago. I think South Korea is a more solid side. I think Iran, if they can get a better group, they're in the conversation. Japan, like you said, they turned things around real quickly in qualifying. Um, should have made the quarters last time. I think Asia can do some real damage in this World Cup.
I agree. I agree. And Sebastian, we know we're not getting to no quarters or semi. If we do that, I would be genuinely surprised. I would be shocked. I generally do think I think the USA we're around a 16 max. If we get out of the group, fantastic achievement. If we don't, I just it's a learning curve for these young players. It really is a young. I like international football because of all our predictions will be wrong. No offense. Oh yeah, we don't know anything. We're no geniuses. Me and Football Pharaoh are no geniuses. We know that. But tomorrow is the draw, people. I can't wait. I think it starts 12 p.m. Eastern time in the States, if I'm not mistaken.
I think so. Yeah. It's being held in Switzerland, I'm guessing, at the headquarters. I don't know.
Hey, I think it might be in Qatar. If people know, I think it might be in Qatar, if I'm not mistaken. It should be at least. It should be at least held there. Oh, one last point before we go. Thank you very much, Josh, for your kind donation. Mike, you have been on fire again this international break. Your passion, commitment, and knowledge on international football is next level. Thank you very much, Josh. Yeah, this is my time to shine, really. I absolutely love international football. Obviously, with the Nations League also this summer, so I can't wait. This is the World Cup. It's every 4 years, people. This is what we build up to. This is why I talk about World Cup qualifiers. Yes, I haven't talked about OFC because we know what's going to happen there. We know New Zealand. But other than that, it's always fun talking about storylines. And you see like Cameroon scoring last minute against Algeria. You look at Peru coming back. You look at Canada returning to the World Cup for the first time in 36 years. I just love these storylines. I think it's excellent. And Josh, thank you very much for your kind donation, your kind words. So, yeah. And people are saying it is being held in Doha, by the way.
Wait.
So, yeah.
Before we end, there's the 2 questions we wanted to get around to, which is finally, what is our prediction for, and this could change as early as tomorrow when we actually get the draw. What's a prediction for where the U.S. will finish, and what group, if we had to guess, they're going to get, like feeling?
Okay. Mount Paras on 7 alkaa. I had to say that and finish at 7 o'clock. It starts in Finland. But if I'm being genuine, I think we're a group stage team at this point. And that's just depending on the draw. Now, a gut feeling what group we're going to get, I don't know why. I think we're going to get Argentina. I think we're definitely going to get Argentina, USA, Poland, and then we might get like a Saudi Arabia or something like that. I think that's the group we're going to get.
Argentina, USA, Poland, Saudi Arabia. Well, a win against Saudi would be mandatory. And then
it better happen.
Yeah. I think we're going to exit in the group stages. Possibly, maybe we can finish as like a third place team in the group with like a couple of draws and a loss. I hope we don't finish with 0 points. That hasn't happened in a long time. We're going to exit in the group stages, I think. As far as the group that I have a hunch that we're going to get, I think we could get us, Belgium, Morocco, and one of the South American teams, Ecuador, Peru. So Belgium, U.S., Morocco. Belgium, U.S., Morocco, and I'll say Ecuador. Oof. That's a tough group.
That is a tough group. And so would this group be France, USA, Japan, Ecuador? Oh, boy, we would not be good. Last question before we head out, because we've been live for an hour and 15. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. And thanks all again to Football Pharaoh for joining me. Which players are under the most pressure, do you think, Football Pharaoh? Or maybe we should actually generalize this more. Which country do you think is under the most pressure to perform this World Cup? And I see you, Roman Slice. We see you.
I think Belgium. Even if the expectation is not necessarily to win it, because I think most of the fans realize that it's a team that's on the way out. But this is their last chance to actually get some silverware. Brazil's always going to have pressure, especially with the way they've been looking now under Tite the last few years. anything less than winning the World Cup for them is unacceptable. I think Argentina is free. I think they're free of pressure because this team has really come into their own. They've gotten more reliable goal scorers when Messi's not able to play. They have a trophy now. I think England will have a lot of hope. Not really sure if they'll have a lot of pressure, but they'll have a lot of hope. Yeah, so I guess those would be my candidates. What about you?
I think Brazil are under massive pressure. I think this is the second longest they've gone without winning a World Cup. I think it's because this is going to be Neymar's last World Cup, in my opinion. I think this is his last World Cup. He has to perform. And this squad, they have so much talent in every position. Every position, they're world-class players for Brazil. So I think they're under massive pressure. Also, England, and that's not because I think they have to win. It's just because of the fans and the media. And that's, I think, nothing against their fans and media because, they're loyal, but they put too much pressure on them. And once they crumble, if they go out in the quarterfinals, it's a complete and utter disaster and sort of stuff like that. So, yeah, I think Brazil, I really do think they're under the most pressure. And I really do think so.
The last question for real. Who's going to win it? Your early point. Who's going to win it?
I think this is Brazil's time. I think it's back to Seleção. I think they're going to grab that 6 star. I think I'm just worried about Neymar. I think he is the difference maker because they don't have a striker.
No.
Longer gone the days of Romario, Pele, Ronaldo, all of these fantastic Brazilian strikers. We had Fred in 2014. I can't remember
Fred and Joe.
Yeah. Oh, jeez. Bernard. I mean, Neymar was playing with a bunch of nobodies in that Brazil squad in 2014, and I can't remember. Maybe people can let me know in the chat who was the striker in 2018 for Brazil because I can't quite remember. I don't know if he was playing a false 9 or if he was on the left, but maybe somebody can let me know, or maybe it was Gabriel Jesus. But yeah, I think it's Brazil's time. Who's your favorite as of this moment?
I have 2 teams in mind, but I think right now I'm going with Brazil. I think I'm going to go with Brazil for now. It's subject to change. But people are going to disagree with this. Looking at what they've done the last few years, I think they've been the most consistent team as far as finishes and tournaments go out of UEFA. I think England is building something. I don't know if Southgate can take them there, but I think they have the best chance they have now they have had in a long time. But yeah. I'm gonna pick Brazil.
You're going to pick Brazil? All right. And Calvin Dino, do we know the possible route to the... Yes, we're going to know tomorrow the possible route. You know what's funny? Actually, Football Pharaoh, I checked, I think, a couple of days ago. We have 4 matches on the first match day. Usually the opening match is only one game on the day. We have 4 matches. Yeah, it's pretty enthralling. I don't know why, but it's weird. As soon as then the host play, we're on to the next game and the next game, and then the ball rolls and the drama begins.
So then that would mean groups, 4 games, mean Group A and B. All the teams will play. Group C will be the next day then. Wow.
Yep. And we will find that all tomorrow, people. Remember, Sebastian, Mod, can you please link my link to the live draw reaction for me tomorrow? Remember, guys, tomorrow I will be having a live draw reaction starting at 6:30 Finland time. So that is, trying to do the conversions here, 11:30 a.m. in the States, Eastern. I think, what is that? 8:30 a.m. Pacific time, and that is trying to do that 4:30 p.m. UK time. Oh man, there's too many time zones I have to go through because I live here in Finland. But thank you all, everybody, for tuning in. We're gonna head out right now. Football Pharaoh, thanks as always for coming on. Great to talk to you, and I know we're excited to see where the USA are going to be in the draw tomorrow. But you can just tell where people can find you, your YouTube and your Twitter.
Yeah, my YouTube channel, you can find me at Football Pharaoh, same name as you see here. And you can find me on Twitter at Football Pharaoh. I'm generally sometimes more active there. I post content that I don't on my channel sometimes. Football Pharaoh at Soccer Pharaoh. That's at soccer_Pharaoh. Thanks. I want to say thanks to Michael for having me on again, for collaborating again. And I hope going forward we can do some more vids like this. And thanks everybody for watching.
Most certainly we will, as it is building up to the World Cup. We have many months to go, and we'll probably just have a whole couple videos just talking about the USA, what we think the best 11 is, and all this sort of stuff, and get into the mind of Greg Berhalter, if that's even possible. If that's even possible. But big up to everybody. Have a beautiful day. Stay safe in this crazy world, and see you tomorrow for the live draw reaction starting at 6:30.